back. Welcome. We are glad you're here. If it's your first time joining us, we cover all the top cyber news, everything that we think might be important to you or your business, all within 30 minutes here. Now, we usually go live here every week, every Wednesday at 11 a.m., but if you're not able to check us out live, this is recorded and you can always catch it on YouTube at a later time. And we love when you share or you give us comments or, of course, tell your friends or family or coworkers too about what the heck is happening in the world of cybersecurity. And with that in mind, let's kick it off. We only have a couple minutes here, guys. So one of the top stories this past week was Chrome introducing a one-time permission and enhanced safety check. What does that mean? Well, it's actually kind of cool. It's especially important that if you only go to some websites, you might only visit one time in your life, right? Well, being able to have some kind of auto safety check running in the background is helpful. So Chrome makes that possible. They also allow flagging of potentially unwanted notifications. And what's really cool is you can actually opt out. You can opt out of unwanted notifications as well and select different permissions. So pretty cool stuff. That's a new feature on Chrome for safer browsing. Now, every week we cover the top newest phishing tactics that happen in the news. And this week, the one that really caught my eye was it's talking about these fake recruiters on LinkedIn, where a lot of times they'll reach out to people through LinkedIn, like developers, and they'll say, hey, we would love you to come work for us. In this case, the example comes from Reversing Labs, and thank you, Reversing Labs. Awesome deep dive into this. What it is a coding test. So the coder, the developer has to take this coding test. They only have a select amount of time, a little amount of time to get in there, to get the link to the GitHub repository, and do the homework task, and the developer, the person being interviewed, has to find the bug, resolve it, push the changes. Once they get all that done, the fake recruiter asks the person to send a screenshot of the fixed bug. Now, of course, this is where inside that malicious Python package is the malware. You have that time frame, and that's where the trick comes into play, because if you have a limited amount of time to take a coding test, chances are you're not going to do any kind of secure code review. You're not going to check any kind of security on the package, and that's what's happening here, and that's how these developers are getting malware on their computer. Allegedly, I think North Korea is behind this type of attack. So again, shout out to Reversing Labs. Now, what else is happening in the news? Invoice fraud tool. This is on the dark web being sold using scammers are using AI to create tools for online banking theft and e-commerce deception. And what they have is bad guys can go and license this for about $2,000 a week, this fraudulent invoice creation tool. And it's pretty fascinating how this thing works. How does it work? Well, thankfully, our friends at Security did a great deep dive into how this thing works. So the bad guy has this tool. It's using proprietary algorithms. It's scrutinizing compromised emails through your POP3 or your IMAP4 protocol. And then it's looking for messages that either mention invoice or attachments. And then the altered invoice is then attached by the perpetrator to the original message. And I'll tell you what, we absolutely see this a lot, where we see customers with accountants, and the accountants and those accounting staff, they keep getting victimized through these fake invoice scams and these fake invoice phishing emails. Dangerous stuff, folks. Again, if you have anybody on your accounting team, make sure they're aware of this kind of stuff that's happening. All right, another thing happening in the news, I hear a lot from my friends on the East Coast about key fob cloning and how vehicles keep getting thieved. And this has been happening for a long time. But in the past, you usually had to have a giant transmitter in a big briefcase. And now the technology has advanced to such a point where the key fob cloning can happen that quick, split second. And I had to laugh because AG, the Attorney General Henry out of Philly, he puts out this little statement. I urge all vehicle owners, be vigilant, take proactive measures to secure your vehicles. but he never explains what are the proactive measures. So wait, Heffy Mays here for Heffy Cyber Clean. I got some helpful advice for you. Now, here's the thing. How do you stop it? Well, a lot of people have this misconception that car key fobs have rolling codes and they're, really hard to breach, and that is not the case. But you do need to be aware of this. There are two types of key fob attacks. First one is called a relay attack. The second one is called code grabbing. Relay attack, you typically see a two-person attack, not all the time though. What a thief will do is they'll walk up to your car or home, they have a piece of equipment, it'll capture the transmitter signal from the key fob. Sometimes though, the threat actor will have a second person that will actually try to jam your key fob when you try to use it. And then, of course, they're able to capture the signal and then get into your vehicle. The second type of attack is code grabbing. And again, how fast does it happen, right? You're in the parking lot, you lock your car to go into the restaurant or the store, and it's that moment in time where you're pressing the key fob, where the headlights flash, it signals the connection, and that's where thieves get in there. They intercept the radio frequency from your key fob and copy the code. And by the way, it's not just cars that can be pilfered like this and stolen. It's also your garage door opener. And a lot of garage door openers, they're not on the modern rolling key fob system. They're still on the old school stuff where it's a single transmission. So what do you do? How do you stop it? Well, there's a couple tips for you. These are not foolproof, by the way. I'll tell you what, now that we know that rolling codes can be recorded, any transmitted key fob is on the radar for a bad guy. So, and it's not just the car keys, it's your home garage door. And by the way, the value of your car is absolutely irrelevant. And I had a friend who had their Honda stolen, all right? Now, the thing about it is, it didn't matter that you drive a fancy car or a Honda, right? The car is valuable for parts. All right, so here's what you can do. One thing is get a Faraday bag. I put a link here. I can't believe Walmart is selling Faraday bags, $3.60. I have no idea whether or not these things work. I haven't tested the Walmart brand, all right? But I'll tell you, there are other models and brands out there for Faraday bags. Some people, though, they don't want to spend money. And you know what? If you put it in an aluminum foil, believe it or not, that will be effective. Just keep a little bit of aluminum foil in your car or in your pocket. All right, so you can also be aware of this, and that is storing your car fobs in a coffee can. Yeah, and the thing about it is, if you have your key fobs near your door, your front door, or in your garage, that's dangerous stuff because the transmission is just enough that it could potentially activate and open up the car door. So if nothing else, though, wrap your key fob in foil. I actually recommend using an Apple AirTag. Maybe put it underneath your car floor mats. But make sure you tell your spouse that there's a key, an Apple AirTag in their car. Otherwise, they may get a notification, right? Someone's tracking you. You won't want that. Okay. All right. So I hope that helps you, folks. Another story in the news, we're talking about homeowners. If you're a realtor or you are thinking about selling your home, there are new bad guy tactics out there, reading online home profiles. And, we always talk about, bad guys casing the joint. And in the old days, they would drive up and down the street looking for the right victim to choose. But this is interesting because cops out of Riverside has said that, now we're doing forensic scans on these bad guys that we lock up, and we're finding that when we forensically scan their phone, we're looking at their internet history, and we're seeing that they're going to sites like Zillow and Redfin. They're going on Google Maps. They're trying to use these new technology tools. I actually love the guy's name from Riverside, the Public Information Officer, Ryan Railback. It reminds me of Casey Ryback from Steven Seagal movies, right? All right, but what can you do about it? All right, here's what you got. You got a couple ideas, and I know realtors are not going to like some of these ideas, but you're talking about protecting your home, right? You're talking about yourself. So limitations. Only include the bare minimum in your online home profile, and it's a balancing act, folks, because you have to be accurate, you have to be telling and professionally, have those professionally taken photos, but you don't have to give a boatload of information when you're selling your home. And you know what you don't need to do is give one of those 360 videos. Realtors love those videos, and they might be helpful, but bad guys use them too because they can pause the 360 video, they can enhance it, and they can see every crack and every crevice from your windows, your cameras, what type of alarm systems you're using. It's those photos that give insights to the threat actor to get into your home. So another tip that Riverside Police give out, do not show photos of the home at night. It shows where the lights are, the motion activated lights, where the dark areas are at in your home. But most importantly, folks, do not reveal your house number. What? I know. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But you could actually build this into your contract where your house number does not have to be displayed. And it actually will force the person that wants to buy your home to contact their realtor. So that might be helpful. Another thing to do is to blur your home on Google View and use a lot of alarm signage. And of course, be nice to your neighbors and befriend your neighbors. That helps. So there's some tips to protect your home from being stolen. Okay, what are some industry reports that are out there? Every week, our industry puts out these reports. Some of them, oh man, they are good. Some of them, though, you should skip and not read. The one report that I really enjoyed this week was from Cato, their cyber threats research lab. They actually analyzed from April through June over 1.38 trillion. We spent a lot for that sound effect. That's a lot of network flows. And they had over 2,500 customers that they have analyzed. And here's their insights. They found that Intel Broker, that threat actor, is the most highly active for their clients. They found that also Amazon was the #1 spoofed brand for phishing emails. And check this out. Cato is saying Log4j is still being exploited? What? Got to get a handle on that, folks. That was years ago, it feels like. All right, so Cato, excellent report. Highly recommend everyone read it. Another report that came out. Oh, and by the way, with Cato, they actually give tips. And that is probably the #1 reason why you should read their report. At the very end, they give some great recommendations. Highly recommend you review some of these recommendations that Cato offers. So we also have our own report that comes out every year. It's our 9th edition of the PCI Compliance Guide. And folks, this book is jam-packed. It is stuffed like a burrito with the single source of truth. When you need PCI information, what does it take? What are the new changes with 4.0? What are the requirements? All that stuff is in this book, and it's completely free. I know, free, folks. You can find that link here in our YouTube video, and you could absolutely get a copy of that book. It's so good. All right, another report that came out this week. If you're on the DevOps team, I thought this was pretty good. It's a good reminder, all right? A lot of the stuff in there, if you're in DevOps, chances are you probably know these secure coding best practices, but a reminder is always helpful. Shout out to Wiz. I believe Wiz made this report. They have a fantastic little cheat guide that you can follow in how to become a more secure coder. And every week we take about 2 minutes to cover some education. There's always something out there to teach, and we try to explain it as simple as we can. This week's learning is how can you prevent insider threats in your business? Now, it is a special month, and the special month is, oh my gosh, it's September, the National Insider Threat Awareness Month. I'm telling you, these cyber people, we have a holiday for every topic out there. And this month is National Insider Threat Awareness Month. And to celebrate, we're going to give you some tips. And some of the tips are going to be pretty helpful, I hope. One thing that you need to understand is, when does a bad guy go rogue? And not every bad guy in your environment does it intentionally. It's not always about malice. Sometimes an employee just accidentally or unaware, they unknowingly commit some kind of security violation, or they click on a fish. It happens. Sometimes, though, you have complacency where, you might have that employee that uploads secure business data to a cloud file. Sometimes, though, there are other things that happen too. But generally what you find is this: an opportunity happens, and then a crisis hits in the person's life, and that leads to some vulnerability or doorway into your business, an insider threat. Now, there are some indicators, though, and it's not a guarantee that all of these happen every single time. But this formula is very helpful, and it helps to understand that there's usually a personal predisposition, and then there's some kind of stressor in the person's life. Then you'll see is these red flag concerning behaviors, and that will lead to the hostile act targeting your business. Doesn't always happen like this, but it's a good formula. It helps. And by the way, as we complete this 2 minutes here, education piece, National Insider Threat Awareness Month, what actually contributes, though, to mental health and well-being in the workplace? I always wondered that. And thankfully, the Surgeon General put out a fantastic report about mental health and understanding what actually goes into workplace happiness. And they said that there are 5 essentials for workplace mental health and well-being. And you can see them up on the screen right now. But these components, when any of these components gets out of whack, you have the potential for an insider threat to enter in your business. And last month was the Insider Threat SBS Summit. There were some really awesome presentations there. I'm going to highlight just one of them. This came from Dr. William Eisler. William says that there are problematic behaviors, and they do develop if these things get out of whack, and especially in our hybrid work environment. You know, you've got people working from home, you've got people in the office, you've got a mixture of both. So the red flags, and a lot of these are not groundbreaking, folks, right? I mean, you know when somebody's not acting normal, their normal self. You might see red flags like loneliness or domestic issues or anxiety or depression. But again, these are all part of these components, and when any of these things get out of whack, you have that potential for bad stuff. So what was really awesome about Eisler's presentation is he shared this model called the CARE model. And this is one of those things where if you have an employee that is very difficult, you're concerned about, you can potentially use this model to help use empathy and curiosity and dive into what's actually happening before the employee goes rogue. It's a fantastic model. We'll include the link in our threat intelligence briefing links that we send out every week. That's where you can get all the links to every one of these topics that we talk about. So again, please empower your team, empower your managers or your leaders to at least be aware of some of these red flags and how to start that conversation. Partnering with HR is always key though, right? That always helps too. Okay, and that is the month of September, and we're rolling into the month of October. You know, we cyber people, we love having a different celebration every month. Next month, October, is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, my 9th favorite holiday of the year. I can't stress it. It's so cool. And the free tools that come out for this month to really help teach your staff security awareness, it is stacked on this website, Secure Our World. You can go there, and they have so many awesome presentations, tools, helpful things to start conversations, maybe in your startup meetings with your staff. And again, that's all completely free on the Secure Our World Cyber Awareness Month, next month, coming soon. So many links, so many links. You can sign up for all the knowledge that you want, completely free. We share all the latest phishing, all the latest lessons learned. The biggest breaches, yeah, we don't have time to cover them all, but we do highlight the bigger ones in this weekly threat intelligence news feed. You can sign up on our site, SecurityMetrics.com, or you can find the link in our YouTube channel. Oh, but we're going to keep on rocking, folks. We don't stop till Jen Stone speaks. She is our podcaster. Episode 103 now available. We're talking about here building a resilient healthcare system, a cybersecurity blueprint. It's a pretty good episode if you get a chance to check it out. Also on YouTube. Great work by Jen every week. You know, we also try to highlight a different case study from one of our clients every week. We have a security operations center. We do inexpensive SOC services for small to medium-sized businesses. But before I tell you this week's use case, and it's a doozy, man, it's a real doozy, I got to tell you the vulnerabilities. And you know what? Another banner week. Last week was insane. Look at all these vulnerabilities just from last week. If you're an IT admin, man, again, my heart breaks for you, man. Woo! Look at all these vulnerabilities from last week. So many of them. And we haven't even talked about the Microsoft Patch Tuesday from last week. 4 0 days, 79 flaws. Wow, just so many. But this week, it was all about Apple. Apple released iOS 17.7. We're talking about 16 important security fixes for all iPhone users. Definitely get on that and start patching, updating your device. Tough stuff. Chrome yesterday, as of this recording, we record every Wednesday live. Chrome put out a big announcement about their updates, many vulnerabilities in Google Chrome, allowing for arbitrary code execution. Definitely want to get updating your Chrome browser. There were quite a few, though, quite a few vulnerabilities. We're talking about that Windows flaw, which got patched. It was opening to a 0-day. We're also talking about D-Link. They put out some patches to their vulnerabilities in their router. VMware, and of course the RCE that was in Google Cloud. Shout out to Tenable for the Cloud Imposter deep dive. Fantastic expose on how that happened, how they found it. Okay, The thing, though, is who are the bad guys? And every once in a while, we like to remind you that in the month of August, our folks over at Checkpoint put out a report that they said Ransom Hub is still number one. No surprises there. They're saying 15% of all attacks were attributed to Ransom Hub. Meow Ransomware Gang coming in at number 2, and number 3 is Lockbit. If you are unaware of who these threat actors are and their tactics, techniques, what they're doing to get into businesses, we've included a little brief informational slide here on how they do that. Or you can reach out to Checkpoint. They have a fantastic report on who the bad guys are. So in terms of our use cases here at SecurityMetrics, again, we offer this Pulse platform and really tries to help small businesses, medium-sized businesses get a handle on threats and be able to really just understand who the bad guys are in their environment. For this particular client, what we were seeing, our SOC analysts were seeing large amounts of failed SSL VPN logins. That was indicative of a brute force attempt against their VPN, and we were able to stop it. Look at all the hits, though, 265,000 hits. And where this happens in the kill chain, the cyber kill chain, it happens at the beginning. So we're very lucky here, I think. We got in on the beginning of it where the bad guy is out there doing reconnaissance, trying to get into the business. We were able to stop that before it happened. So there you have it. And every week we have different segments. One of my favorites is gaslighting. What fires me up, man? What gets me upset in the world of cybersecurity? This is my moment of zen that I can release all that pent-up aggression and anger. This is the therapy part of our threat briefing, folks. Okay, Hezbollah in the news. This is a breaking news story, folks. The story is changing so rapidly and so fast. Chances are by the time you see this briefing, this news will already be outdated. But how often do you ever hear about a pager being used as an attack vector? And the only reason we're really talking about it is because the initial news reports speculated that malware was somehow involved in this to be able to have these pagers blow up. We know as of this recording of the briefing, unfortunately, 12 folks have died. 2 children were killed in these pager attacks. 2,700 people are injured, supposedly. The exploding pagers, though, this is where the story goes a little off the rails. And again, it's breaking news, so as we talk about it, things have changed a lot. The pagers were apparently manufactured or created by a Taiwanese company called Gold Apollo. Gold Apollo is saying, no, it's actually a Budapest-based company that's producing our pagers. And then the Budapest-based company, BAC, is saying, no, in quotes, I think this was NBC News, I don't make the pagers, okay? I'm just the intermediary. I think you got it wrong, right? So the news is just changing so rapidly and fast. And as of about an hour before we recorded this, the Hezbollah, the walkie-talkies now have started exploding across Lebanon. So where I found this interesting and where I'm going to stop on this topic today is this. N.R. Jensen, he put out a Twitter announcement, and I think it was very interesting. He says, the scale of these attacks suggests a very complex supply chain attack rather than a scenario in which devices were intercepted and modified in transit. I'll tell you, where do we go from here? The thing that I'm always worried about is you've got docks, right? You got the docks in Long Beach, all across the country. You know, I have no idea. Are we scanning those things now? Next, do we look for potentially 20 kilograms of dynamite or black powder or whatever inside these electronics? Like, I'm gonna go buy a smart fridge, right? Am I safe, right? I mean, you want to know those kind of things. So, but we'll never know at this point in time. So keep abreast with us. Stay in touch with the news, and you'll learn more about what the heck is happening over there in Lebanon. Okay, some other news that got us fired up is this guy. You remember this guy, Mike Lindell, the MyPillow dude? Apparently, there's a story from Rolling Stone magazine and American Doom where the Mike Lindell group is being accused of impersonating election cybersecurity initiatives. Now, this comes from a story that supposedly, allegedly, there was some kind of request of the home addresses and information about how election officials are monitoring security threats. Interesting stuff. I mean, it's always interesting when it comes to Mike Lindell, but fascinating things happening in that world. 23andMe, you want to talk about getting me fired up, talking about 23andMe, how they had this responsibility to hold your DNA data, keep it secure, and they dropped the ball. They dropped it. $30 million settlement. But there was something new that came out of this lawsuit, and I did not know it. We did not share this in any of our briefings yet. Apparently, 23andMe did not tell customers with Chinese or Jewish ancestry that they were actually targeted. Specifically, they were being targeted for their DNA information. And their information was posted on the dark web. So again, interesting stuff with 23andMe, $30 million settlement. Google, some of us around here are huge fans. We're hobbyists. We love side-loading apps into our Android phones. And Google is just going to make it a little bit harder for us. So this is an interesting story in that the wild, wild west days of side-loading apps onto your Android and not going to the Google Play Store are pretty much ending. And Google is saying they are going to make it harder. The Play Integrity API, we're going to try to protect users from abuse and so on. So this is always a struggle, right? You want to do what's good for security, but you also have all these hobbyists out there, like myself included, where we love to do things and tinker and play. That day may be coming to an end. Oh, sad, shed a tear. What does keep us up at night, though, in the SOC? Data security education. And really, that's why we do this briefing, is to try to help educate you, teach you, and give you some information, empower you and your team with knowledge. A lot of people don't know this, but we have free academy, a SecurityMetrics Academy. We're talking about awesome data security education, no charge to use and access any of this information. It's available on the SecurityMetrics Academy site, and it's completely free. So much good information in here, and you can take the classes at your leisure. You can also assign them to your employees to take. We honestly believe this is part of our journey here, is helping educate and teach our small to medium-sized business owners. That's SecurityMetrics Academy if you want to learn more. I do have to put out a little explicit warning here. I will not say the threat actor's name. It's got a little bit of a vulgar tonality to it. So this is the put on your earmuffs time for the presentation. All right, put on your earmuffs because we might have some vulgarity here. Before I get to the vulgarity part, 1,000 ServiceNow instances were found leaking corporate knowledge-based data. ServiceNow is a very popular tool, especially in enterprises. This is more of a cloud-based platform. A lot of companies use it for their ticketing tools, their IT ticketing tools. But in this example here, what was breached was, we know that PII, internal system details, user credentials, access tokens. Oh, man, dangerous stuff. Shout out to the security researchers at App Omni who found this. Another story in the news are these high utility bills. How could this possibly happen? Apex, North Carolina had a cyber attack allegedly, and then it coincided. I'll tell you, the threat actor, brilliant, okay? Brilliant, because the cyber attack happens and coincides with a rate increase by the utility company. So all these people in North Carolina are getting these quadruple and double, triple bills, and then it happens as they have a cyber attack. Interesting to see how this is going to play out and what happens with this. But for a bad guy to attack during a rate increase, that's some serious planning. Fortinet, we now have attribution on who the bad guy was. This is the earmuffs part of the threat briefing. Fortinet, by the way, third largest cybersecurity firm in the world. Apparently, their Australian offices are the ones that had a third-party shared cloud drive, and that's what allowed the data to get leaked. Talking about 2,000 Fortinet customers were caught up in this leak. Devastating news for Fortinet. And Fortinet thankfully decided, hey, we're not paying the ransom. So kudos to you guys. A couple weeks ago in one of our briefings, we talked about the Port of Seattle, the airport. Yeah, they had a breach. We now have attribution. We know that it was Reseda that was behind the stealing of the data at the Port of Seattle. Another update, too, is the hospital breach. This was a big deal a couple months ago, back in June, where now we know Quillian, the ransomware group, was behind this attack on Synovus. But where the story goes off the rails is, again, there's not a lot of information from London hospitals about what data was caught up in this breach. And this is the kind of stuff that grinds your gears. So a company called SecurityMetrics said, we're going to go find out. And they actually discovered the dates of birth, the NHS numbers, the personal, all this stuff. But again, here 4 months after this breach, and now it's vendors like SecurityMetrics that are doing the dirty work and trying to figure out what data was caught up in this. The other thing happening here, last week in our briefing, we talked about 17-year-olds joining the party, becoming, hackers, trying to go after fame and glory. And this has been happening for a while, but there is an absolute uptick in the number of bad guys that are teenagers doing this. A 17-year-old was arrested for the Transport London attack, which was like last week or 2 weeks ago. So kudos on the London on catching this kid. All right, now one more thing here as we wrap up today's briefing is the other news stories. Now there's some other really good stuff out there. And again, we don't have time every week to cover all the top stories, but there is some fallout from CrowdStrike. Microsoft, they're saying that we are going to redesign our EDR vendor access to the Windows kernel now. That's pretty cool stuff. And, giving people access to that may help prevent and stop some of this kind of stuff from happening when, like, CrowdStrike puts out a bad flaw in their software, a bad update. Okay, this is interesting too. Uber a GDPR fine of $290 million, and I'll tell you what, it was interesting how this went down because we're trying to figure out, well, if Uber did not transfer data out of the EU to the US, well, how are they still being hit with a $290 million fine? If you want to understand this, there is an excellent report from Data Protection. It's written by lawyers. You may need to read it like 9 times, 10 times before you understand it. It's pretty complex writing, but it does give you some idea of why that happened. So, and then I thought this was interesting. MasterCard acquiring the threat intelligence firm Recorded Future. MasterCard getting hot and heavy into the world of cybersecurity, man. And then, of course, Instagram saying we're going to try to help teenagers. That's so nice of them to finally do this. All right, they're going to try to help make all teenagers' accounts private. Anyone under the age of 16 needs parental permission, restricting content, all that jazz. Thank you, Instagram. Oh, man. And then the AI news as we kind of end this today. California passing some bills saying no more, you're not allowed to replace an actor with AI. No more deep fakes. AI being used to amplify personal audio advertising. It's pretty interesting stuff. That's on adage.com. We'll include the link if you want to hear that one too. And the final news story is about the police. I didn't know this. I didn't know that state troopers are now they're shooting GPS tracking tags from their police cruiser onto cars that are fleeing. So this might help cut down on some of those accidents that you see when guys are driving super fast and police are trying to chase them. So that's it, folks. If you want the links, please subscribe to our weekly Intel threat feed. And as always, I'm grateful you joined us. Thanks for hanging out with me and the rest of us here at SecurityMetrics. We're here every week, live, 11 a.m. And if you want to catch the rebroadcast, we'll be on YouTube. And please share with your friends, your coworkers, your peers, some of those phishing stuff, man. There's some crazy stuff happening out there in the world. Have a good week. We'll see you later.